Welcome to the talk show Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. The goal of this show is to provide a learning experience to people of all ages, with guests from various fields in academics, a wide range of industries, and insight into the many forms of art, athletics, and entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. Actress Annie Wood is today's special guest. Annie will speak about her work as an actress, author, poet, screenwriter, and playwright. Annie was also the host and co-producer of the nationally syndicated dating game show, BZZZ.
Annie Wood, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Annie, you are an Israeli-American Hollywood, California native. So,
correct.
A bit of a mouthful. What can you tell us about your childhood? And please include information about your Ima.
Thank you. Yes, my beautiful Ima, which is Hebrew for mom. She came here from Israel when she was already 39. I think she had me when she was 40. But anyway, she met my dad, who's an American, and 2 weeks later they got married. So wow. She stayed here, and they had me. And I grew up with two half brothers in Hollywood at first, and then we moved to the Valley, the San Fernando Valley. And it was just I love my childhood. It was just, they gave me so much. I say this all the time. My parents gave me so much space to just be who I was to be and what I needed to be. And that is so much a part of who I am and why I feel so, I think, confident and carefree in all my creativity is because in large part, they just were like, yeah, whatever you need to do. There weren't a lot of rules, a lot of other things. I didn't have chores. I didn't have like a bedtime. I didn't have all sorts of things like this. It was just kind of a area of trust. And it's not like they were hippies. They were middle-aged, and they were not that way. They were just, I don't know. My mom, maybe, I think a lot of it has to do with culturally. In Israel is a lot like Italy, where the kids are just kind of allowed to be free and do their thing. So it was like that.
That's great. So, but no chores and I don't know. I'm getting jealous now. I'm really hating my parents at the moment.
I would imagine.
In comparison. No, love my parents, but interesting because I've been in education over 30 years, and unfortunately, there are parents that actually stifle creativity. And your parents did the opposite of that. And I would argue that I don't know that you would have gone into the field you went into if it weren't for those experiences you had as a youngster with that freedom to be creative, as you said.
I mean, so, I believe it helped, but for sure I was always destined to be a creative. I couldn't have been anything else. At 3 years old, I put my hand on the TV set over Carol Burnett and said, I'm going to be in the TV. So I declared it early on, even when I was shy and even when I had no idea.
Well, that's somebody to emulate. I saw every single episode of that show.
Yeah.
For sure. So then when did you decide that entertainment just like needed to be your career path? You may have known it at 3, but when did you make that decision?
I would say that I decided at 3. And when was I able to do anything about it? Yeah, that's another question. So I think I would say my first acting class, I think I was 10, and just convinced my parents. I think there was no internet then, so I had to figure out where to go because neither of my parents were doing that so much. I was the one figuring out. And so I guess maybe I heard a friend at school say there's an acting class, and I came home from school and said, I have to do this. So I was always coming up with like ideas like, oh, and then I have this friend who has an agent. We need pictures. I was the one coming up with all the things we needed to do. So it was the opposite of having a stage parent. I was the stage child.
Yes. That is quite an opposite. You always hear about the crazy stage mother. You were the crazy stage kid.
Yeah, because Ima, her Hebrew was her first language, not English. She was learning English when I was little. So she still didn't even speak it. She never learned to write English. So she was not going to figure that stuff out. That was just not something and my dad, was working. He was working at Department of Water and Power, working his way up to become a lawyer, which he finally did for the Department of Water and Power. So they were doing their things. And my brothers were 9 and 11 years older than I am. So that's quite a big difference when you're little, obviously. So yeah, it was really up to me. I don't really know how I did it, but I did it.
So now moving on in years, you're past being a teenager, and you end up being a co-producer and game show dating host of Biz, I guess is the way you pronounce it.
Well, actually, you say Buzz. When it was before it became a national show, it was Bzz, and I used to say we can't afford to buy the vowel.
Right.
But then when it became syndicated, we pronounce it Buzz. Yeah.
Gotcha. So once Vanna White, can I buy a vowel? I'll buy a U.
That's right.
You were the game show dating host of Buzz. So,
Yes.
But you were only the third woman solo game show host in the history of television.
Solo dating game shows in the history of television. Yeah, I'm in the books.
Yes, and history books. I can't take you out of that. So,
Right.
so what did you learn from your time on Buzz?
Oh, wow. Well, it was just an incredible experience. I was able to, I was in my 20s. I was able to hire my best friend at the time to be my personal assistant. We traveled the country promoting the show. We even went to France to sell the show there. I mean, we were just having the time of our lives. I was a guest on The Tonight Show with Jay Leno. I was on Bill Maher. I mean, it was just fantastic. And hosting the show, what we did, Stu Billett, who recently passed away, unfortunately. Stu Billett was a producer. Ralph Edwards passed away a while ago, was it was a Ralph Edwards, Stu Billett production. These are game show and TV.
These are icons.
Yeah, Stu Billett is responsible, as you know, I'm sure, for the People's Court.
Right.
That's probably his most famous thing. And we like to treat the show. We treated the show as if it were a live show, a live taping. I love old Hollywood. They were old Hollywood, literally. So we treated the show like it was live, meaning I would go on and improvise, and I would have my cards, to see who the contestants were. John Reinhardt, who's no longer with us as well, was a good friend. He was one of the producers. He'd come back and we would go over, like, how do you pronounce the names? And then we would say come up with ideas, interesting jokes or something. And then I would go out and we would do 5 shows in one day. And it was just such a good time. Originally, how they found me was that I was a contestant coordinator for MTV's Singled Out, which was a dating game show with Jenny McCarthy and I want to say Chris Hardwick. Is that true? Yeah, Chris Hardwick. And I was a game show contestant, one of the contestant coordinators, meaning I would go out and find people to be on TV, which you go to clubs, you go places. Hey, you want to be on TV? You can win stuff. It'll be fun. I'm in LA. Everybody wants to be on TV, so that wasn't that hard to do. So I had amassed a book this big of names of people that want to be on TV. So when they found out about me, and I can't remember how, at Ralph Edwards Stu Billett, they were like, get her over here. She has all the names of these people in the age range. But when I got there, Stu asked me some questions about this show he was developing, Buzz. And he showed me a demo and he said, what do you think of this? And I was of the right age. I had my hat on backwards. I had a rock star t-shirt. I was like that grunge kid. And I said, well, here's the thing. Here are the problems. And I just started telling him everything I thought. And he loved it so much that I had so much to say that he took a lot of my advice and said, you know what, I forget the contestant coordinating. I want to hire you to help develop and be a producer. So that's how I started. And then eventually, when one guy didn't show up to host, one of the comics, we would get stand-up comics to come do run-throughs. He was sick or something. So I came up and pitched myself, and I got to do a run-through, and the rest was history. That was it.
Well, that's incredible, but there's very important lessons in what you just said. That's such an incredible story, but you said, I went out there and I got people, I went to bars here and there. It was so easy. So it's really not that easy. One of my favorite people in the world who connected us, casting director, Beverly Pomerantz. Yes. I was out in LA for business and we had lunch together. I've seen her in action. I've seen her pick out which waitress had the personality to be good for a game. She doesn't stop anybody, but she has a little adorable dog with her. I think her name is Daisy. And, right. People that she's got me for the show and people that I met, she meets by walking the dog at shopping. You've got to have a certain personality for that. Yeah, because, you even pitched yourself. So some people, it's a tough business. They think it's all glitz and glamour, and you got to pitch yourself. Other people, when the comic didn't show up, would have said, oh, that's too bad the comic didn't show up. You took that to the next level, and that is a skill. It really is. And so where do you find that confidence? Is it innate? Is it genetics? Is it something you developed, or is it just your gift?
It's really a good question. God, that's so interesting. What do I really think? Because I was shy, believe it or not, when I was little. I really just spoke with my family when I was little. It wasn't until I was maybe late teens that I started really coming out of my shell. And then it was like, hold back, I'm here. But the confidence, is it genetic? God, I don't know. You know, Israeli culture and my dad's side, Ukrainian. So those cultures are strong. That's for sure. I would say they have a lot of chutzpah, both of those cultures. So maybe it's something in there, but I didn't see it necessarily in my actual family like that, not like that. I don't know where I got my ambition. I'll tell you that, because I have a lot of ambition, and I tell that to my husband too. I'm like, where did this come from? I did not see that. So, and it was not pounded in me, that's for sure. So I don't know. That part I came up with. As far as confidence, I think really I love so much what I do, which is create. And I've always been a writer and I've always been a creator. I love it so much, like it feels like me. And so it didn't occur to me to not be confident about it. Like I'm not asking permission. I'm not questioning this because it's coming out of me. And if God or the energies that be like put me here with all of this, it can't be for nothing. So,
well, it's the opposite, because a lot of people think about what they need to do to be confident. You think the opposite. I never thought about not being confident.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say it's a combination of all those things. It's genetics, it's innate, it's all those things. Maybe, you developed it through the years. But
I will say, as far as I think self-love has a lot to do with confidence. And that is something that I believe I came in with, but I continue to make the choice, because there are many times in my life where I could have obviously gone the other way. We all have things happen in our life, and not everybody is welcoming with open arms. And this business is crazy, and it'll hug you and love you, and then it'll just spit you out. It does do that. So you have to have a lot of self-love to keep showing up. So that was a choice as an adult. For sure. That was a choice every time to say, no, I believe in me. I have a file that says people say, and I've kept it for as long as I can remember. And it's everything positive anybody's ever said, whether it's critics, reviewers, friends, passerbyers, strangers. I kept a list so I can refer to, yeah, there we go. See, it's working. People are seeing it. So
that's so true. I have a friend, Donna Palmer, who runs women's empowerment groups, and self-love is something she mentions so many times. And the fact that you mentioned that you need to have this and this confidence, because Hollywood can sometimes eat you up, chew you up, and spit you out. And sometimes we don't hear that often enough. We really know the glory, but we don't know the story. So what struggles have you had to overcome to be successful in your industry?
Well, in the 90s, which sounds just in a way sounds like a long time
ago.
Yeah, I know, right? But it was a long time ago. The fact that I'm only the third female solo dating game show host in the history of television is telling. There's a reason for that. And the reason Stu told me was there was this story going around from a long time ago that even Betty White, who was one of the solo dating game show hosts, she did end up doing that. Even Betty White didn't test well. So when they do test audiences, didn't test well when she was a host at first, because the idea was people didn't want to hear the rules from a woman. So this was the idea back then. So she did it. I don't know why I want, not Elaine Joyce, but Joan Davis. I can't remember the other two right now, or the other one right now. But anyway. So the idea that a woman in that kind of power position, even though it's like light and fun and it's dating and it's love, you'd think it wouldn't be like that. But that was the concept and the idea. And people were against a woman hosting. Stu stuck with me so much. He said, well, the show, we won't sell this show unless Annie's hosting it. Because I pitched it with him around town. He was the seasoned pro. I was the cool, and we had our bit down and we pitched a show. We sold it in the room, and that was part. And then they wanted to get a different host, and he said no. He stuck with me, and said, you don't understand. It has to be her. It has to be Annie. So that turned out great. I'm also a voiceover artist, and back in the day, the same was said about women who were the announcers of commercials. Like they didn't want a woman's voice to be the one in control. Mm. But I became the announcer for Baskin Robbins. I became the announcer for Giant Food Supermarkets, for St. Louis Post-Dispatch. And how did I do it? I had agents and people that believed in me. I went up for it. I got them, and I just stopped. I didn't listen to the noise, and I just kept showing up with what I could do. And luckily, a lot of that is changing. And yeah, there's just, look, we could talk forever about the terrible things that have happened, especially to women in this business. But that is changing for sure now. Absolutely. It is a much better place to be.
You're one of the three. You're one of the three who have led the way on that. So that's an incredible thing. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned voiceover. So I've interviewed several voiceover artists, and sometimes it's just their voice, their birth voice, and sometimes they have to create a voice, a cartoonistic voice. So have you done that, or is it always your voice?
Yeah, no, I voiced a Fisher-Price toy, a little Southern pony, and I voiced, I'm in a current video game called Mafia Definitive Edition, and I play a flapper, so I'm like this East Coast kind of gal from back east, it's the 20s, so there's a lot of mobs and there's a lot of thing happening, and so there's that. I audition all the time for animation, so I'm very much looking forward to working more on that.
That's great. So yeah, the voiceover artists have always had a special place in my heart, because before I started interviewing some of them, I would see people doing voiceover work on a TV show or something, and you'd show them on a documentary or something. I'm like, why does it look like they're acting? Nobody's watching. It's just a voiceover. But then you start to see that they really are pros. Absolutely. And have to get into it. So do you think being an actress has enabled you to be a more authentic voiceover artist?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, it's all acting. A voiceover, the fact that it's called something else, I mean, it's acting, it's voice acting, but it's acting. It's all acting. It's all about the story. It's all about who is this person and what is the story that they want to tell. So yeah, it's really all connected. There's really not much separation, other than there's not a camera on you. And for animated projects, especially if it's for kids, you have to be bigger, depending on the audience and all that. But you better use your body, and you better get into it, or else you'll hear it in the voice. It'll sound flat.
Gotcha. And that's a good insight. I want to get into, the show is only so long and you do so much. So I know you're a voiceover artist, you're an actress, co-producer, you're also an author, you have 3 novels, you're an artist. But I want to talk about the full-length play about your dad's recent onset of dementia. This affects so many families.
Yeah.
And I wonder how you have dealt with this diagnosis. People don't really know enough about what the caretakers and family members go through.
Yeah. It's I didn't send you this. I should send you this link. I actually made a short animated documentary about it as well, called Dad's Frenemy, because in my dad's case, he started having an auditorial hallucination where he thought he heard a man's voice telling him things, all sorts of things. And I recorded him, and I created an animation with some of my poetry and all of that. And I made an 8-minute documentary short, and it just won the San Francisco Indie Art Festival, and it's got a bunch of other laurels. Right. And I'll send you a link. Thank you. I'll send you a link. And then this, at one point he said to me, I told him, this voice it's in your head. You're creating this story, because he's a playwright, my dad, or he was, he still is. He can't see well enough to write right now, but he's been a playwright. So he said to me, wow, that's so interesting. You should write about this. So I wrote this. It's called You Should Write About This. And this is a poetry art book. So it's got art that inspired, there he is, and I combined it with my poetry. And this is available in my Etsy shop, I think. I think I should have a few more. I only made a limited run because it's an art book. But for the play, yeah, I completed the play. I'm looking forward to getting that produced. It is something that people need to talk more about and understand more fully, especially the fact that some medication makes things worse. And that's what we ran into. 2 medications, antipsychotics, made him psychotic, and it was bad. Finally found medicine that works for him. And we just saw him. I just came back like right before here, visiting him. He lives 4 minutes from us. And he's just so much better. He still hears a voice, but it's not how it was. He's able to communicate. He's able to kind of seems like himself until he starts talking about this man that only he can hear. It's fascinating, really.
Well, I love the courage and the acceptance that you have, and I know it's not easy. More important that you share it. So, unfortunately, our time is up. We could talk for 3 hours with all the things you're involved with. So, Annie Wood, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your passion for acting, creating, artwork, and actually sharing your personal family story with us. Thank you so much. And to my viewers, thanks for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman, and we'll see you next time. Annie, thank you so much for being here. Thanks so much.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman. To contact Marc, email him at info@lifestorieswithmarchoberman.com or visit him on social media through Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Thank you for watching Life Stories with Marc Hoberman.